every week, Friday, 8:30, for the Bailey and French Friday lives. And big news, actually, these will not be on a Friday anymore from January, which is quite cool. But more to come on that. We'll let everyone know and keep everyone posted. But that's not until January. So every week from now until then, stay with us Friday at 8:30. And today I've got Ben, who is part of the consulting team. Ben, this is your first one. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Yeah, first team debut. Been hard work in pre-season, waiting for my big chance to come off the bench. And hope that I can take my opportunity.
Well, it was great. And the topic that you brought to the table was a really important one. And we've been talking about it all week. And it's a really important one. It's a really interesting one, actually. And as we've been talking just before we came live, there's actually a lot of things here that we could unpack. And I think this is going to go, as it always does, quite quickly. I think we're going to cover all things leadership, role modeling. We're going to cover well-being, but we're going to tackle it with the lens around International Men's Day, which it is today. And all of the kind of, we're very conscious, aren't we, of the stereotypes and the kind of the language that's framed around International Men's Day. And of course, we've done things previously for other days. So we're just kind of really interested, and we want to unpack the elements that it might teach us around leadership and role modeling in today's world, and in particular in the hybrid world that we're working in, the changes in leadership that we're seeing, and also kind of looking at it from a well-being lens and seeing, what there might be to take away from that. What was it that kind of made you think of this and bring it to the table?
So I think I've been aware of International Men's Day for a good couple of years now. I think it's, from what I understand, it's tied in with the Movember campaign, which is going for many, many years now. I've been told by my much better half that I'm never allowed to grow a tash again after doing so about 10 years ago now.
We've all done it. We were.
Yeah,
I'm still trying.
I'll share a photo of it later. I haven't shown that to any of you yet for good reason, but yeah, never again. But yeah, overall, it's something which I've been aware of. It's something of real importance to me and a number of my good male friends as well. And I think the whole kind of shared experience of the last couple of years that we've all been a part of has, I guess, given us the opportunity to really shine a light on the issues that are affecting both, well, all of us generally across the board, but then specifically women, females, and then separately the other kind of issues that are specific potentially perhaps to men as well. And really giving the opportunity for us all to share our experiences, attempt to be comfortable with being open and honest and exposing ourselves in a positive way to, I guess, conversations that we potentially in the past weren't comfortable having, and how that kind of plays out day to day in terms of our own physical, mental well-being, mental health, etc. And yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I've taken from the last couple of years is that there are more and more people who are thankfully more and more comfortable having those conversations and just being aware of their own personal, physical, mental well-being, and where and how they seek that support, really. So yeah, it's a fantastic campaign, something that we wanted to, I guess, promote and shine a light on and add our voices to the conversation in a positive way.
Yeah, and one of the words that came up a lot when we were discussing this was role modeling. And we're hearing a lot from our clients around, the change of leadership, not just in terms of context. And this has obviously been a shift that's been happening for a while. I think just generally culture is shifting to encourage more of these kind of conversations that maybe are a little bit more uncomfortable for people or we're not used to because of how we've been brought up or how our parents or role models previously have been brought up.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really interesting point to delve into. You know, who are our role models? What are the behaviors that we want our role models to kind of show us and be showing us on an everyday? How has that changed?
Yeah.
And also kind of reflecting on, well, what's the role model that we want to be? You know, what are the things that are important to us and who we are that we should be role modeling to give other people the freedom to kind of do these things that you've just talked about that are quite important?
Yeah. So when I was thinking about it, I think personally, I've always had a bit of a sticking point in my mind as to who my roles were and are now. I think when you're a kid growing up, you're kind of told or it's pushed on you that your role model should be your favorite sports person or your favorite movie star or someone in the public domain that you have no connection with, but is seen to be doing incredibly positive things that you should aspire to do as well. You know, when I was a teenager, all I could ever think about was being a professional footballer. That, as many, you know, men and hopefully girls now as well aspire to be, whether it was Chris Waddle or Steven Gerrard or David Beckham. Those were the guys that I looked up to day in, day out as those that I, you know, wanted to be growing up. Then as time goes on and you kind of go through the school system, university, you get into the working world, that kind of moves away, and you're suddenly then surrounded by both men and women who are having a far greater impact on your day-to-day life and really helping to shape who you are, whether that's in the working world or outside. I think, without getting too soppy, absolutely one of my role models over the last few years has been my wife. She is someone who I look up to immensely, is fantastic at her job, both in the office and outside of it, as a partner and as a wife, as a mother. So she's, I guess subconsciously, she's been someone that I've looked up to every day as a role model for me, and how I can take who she is naturally into who I want to be as well. And I think many people have that with their partners and significant others. In the working world, again, I think there's always that tendency for all of us to look up to our bosses, our managers, the senior leadership team as the people that you should be role modeling. And that's absolutely right and key. But then also what I've learned over the last few years in various roles that I've had is that role models can be those people that have just been doing what you want to do for much longer, whether they're older than you, whether they're younger than you, whether they've been working for, you know, many years longer than you or not. They are the people that you're interacting with day in, day out, and just have the skill set, but also set the tone and the daily routine that you should be aspiring to. And so I think over time, in my experiences, I've just allowed myself not to, I guess, pin my colors to the mast in terms of that person is my role model, and because I can't connect with that. But what I can connect to is the people that I interact with and engage with day in, day out, and take little things from other people that I then look to bring into my day-to-day world, whether that's in the office or outside the office. And then just very quickly touching on your second point, which is really important in terms of the role model that we want to be, becoming a father really highlights that for you, for me as an individual. What kind of role model do I want to be for my kid? How do I want to be seen by them? What values do I want to instill in them from day one? And it's I guess it's slightly different for both my daughter, who is nearly 6, the relationship that she has with me, the relationship that I want her to have with boys in her class at school, men in general, as she gets older. And then also my son, who's 2.5, and what kind of man eventually do I want him to be? What relationships do I want him to have with other guys and girls moving forwards? And that's another. I mean, that's a separate Friday Live, Monday Live in itself. I know that Alex and Tom touched on kind of the family values last Friday, which was a really interesting listen. So yeah, there's a huge amount of there's so many things to kind of think about and dissect in terms of the way that we see role models in our world and the role model that we want to be for people as well.
Yeah. And I think you've touched on so many interesting and important points there, and role modeling that you've chosen throughout your life and how that shifted from, sports people, musicians, as you say, the people that were in the limelight. And of course, we're closer to them now through social media, maybe we're seeing a version of them that they want us to see.
Yeah.
But actually the most important role modeling in your life, from the sounds of it's beautiful and it's real, it's authentic. Yes, this is also why we're wanting to have these conversations. It's your wife, it's your children, it's the around you, and not necessarily just your leaders or the leadership team, but actually peers, and you're choosing. Or when I was listening to you, you're choosing those role models consciously, and maybe this is a learning for people to be taking away. If you're watching this and thinking of role modeling, you've consciously picked apart behaviors of the people that you admire, and you've gone, well, that ties into something that I strongly believe in myself, and I would love to do more of that. We talk a little bit about strengths envy. So if someone kind of has a strength around strategic thinking and you don't have that maybe energy around strategic thinking, you actually quite like getting into the detail, for example. It's quite easy to go, I wish I was like Ben, who thinks strategically and all the rest of it. Actually, no, you need to be really comfortable with the strengths that you have. And I think role modeling, in the way that you just described it, you've kind of gone through that conscious or maybe subconscious to a level, kind of understanding of who you are and who you want to be and the behaviors that you admire, not because you're envious of them, but because actually maybe there's something there that connects with you and connects with your wife and builds relationships with the people around you. And that's helped you build the type of role model that you want to be for your future children, people that you manage, people that, are in your team.
And I think it's being comfortable with the acceptance and the idea that will never stop. There's always that that scope, that opportunity, that space to develop individually, and just a general understanding that you can, like you were saying, you can take different things from different people, whether you're around them 7 days a week, in an office or not. So many people have so many things to offer in a very different way. And you're constantly learning, you're constantly developing, you don't always have the answers, and that's okay. And so long as you're comfortable seeking them, whether that's consciously or not, just allow yourself to be as open as possible to learning, really.
It's interesting, actually, because what we're now getting into is, and this is what our clients have been asking us, and this is also why the topic kind of came up, was around what are those behaviors that people are wanting to role model now more than ever in this world that we're in, where well-being is a key focus, where continuous learning, because you don't have the answers, because the ground underneath you is shifting quite frequently. what are some of the behaviors? What are some of the things that are coming out maybe for clients? What are some of the things that we would say are important for people to be role modeling in life and in work together, actually?
I think for me, it's transparency and honesty. I think something that we as a team in Bailey and French certainly have is that continuous conversation. Not being afraid to ask questions when we just don't know the answer, or we're stuck on something, or we need that support, or have you, if we come up with a kind of a tricky situation with something that we're working on with a client or as a team, have you dealt with this situation before? What are your experiences with this? Again, just coming back to that notion of being open-minded, being honest, being, vulnerable. Vulnerability is, I guess, a word that I've really come to understand in the last year or two about what it really means. And just the fact that I think if someone said to you, you're vulnerable, you automatically see that as negative. You think that you're exposed to something that's a danger to you, or you're not comfortable with. When really vulnerability needs to be seen as a strength, because it just allows you to learn and develop. And I think the more that we do and can talk to clients and suppliers and partners and stakeholders about that, then the more opportunity there is for collaboration, for development, for learning, for progression, and to be better at what you do and who you are, really.
Yeah. And we talk a lot about, as you've said, around the continuous improvement, the growth mindset, and vulnerability, psychological safety kind of coming hand in hand. We've talked about that on a few Friday Lives, where you can't be vulnerable if you don't feel psychologically safe.
Yes.
You don't create psychological safety without creating an environment where people are vulnerable.
Yes.
Vulnerability builds trust, and that's essential. And these are all behaviors that we need to aspire to role model more frequently. A question that we always get is kind of, well, what are the barriers to role modeling these things? I've just mentioned a couple around psychological safety, but what do you think in particular around, I guess, thinking about those behaviors for men? We are talking about International Men's Day, but also just generally for people. What are some of the barriers that are getting in the way of us being able to role model this positive way of leading that we know is so important?
I think from a male perspective, from a male point of view, historically, unfortunately, it's been the general consensus or the general feeling that men have a certain place in society. So men have always been seen as the breadwinners, the hunter-gatherers, the side of the family, if you like, that go out and earn the money day in, day out, while the wife stays at home and looks after the kids, and all of those terrible, outdated stereotypes. And so for men, there is that battle, or hopefully that shift now, where they can move away from that very closed-minded, very boxed way of thinking. And this has to be a positive for women, for females as well, obviously, because the greater balance that there is in terms of the men and the women, the husbands and the wives, the males and females being able to share the load, if you like, and really allow themselves to contribute equally, then obviously the better, if it works for the individual couples and the way that they want to, I guess, live their lives. But I think because of that historical imbalance in a way, men have always had that sense of, that's my role, that's my job, I have to do that. I have to focus on that. I'm not allowed to show any weakness when it comes to this isn't working for me for whatever reason. There's obviously a multitude of reasons for the individual in question, but yeah, I think historically all of that has just led to men, again, in general, not just having that sense of not being able to share what they're going through, who they are, what their struggles are. And so all of that gets kind of absorbed internally, and they don't have either the ability or the vulnerability or the confidence to go and seek help. They don't have the they just don't have the experience or the skills to recognize and understand what they're going through. And then bringing it back to role models, they probably don't seek, or they aren't aware of who their role models are and where that help can be, whether it's someone they're working with, whether it's someone at home. And again, I guess thinking out loud, a lot of stereotypically, broadly speaking, I think a lot of men will see other men as role models and not necessarily women. So it's trying to find the balance between looking after yourself, but also seeking help from others. I'm not sure. Yeah, it's a really deep, broad conversation.
And that's why we wanted to touch on it, right? And we said right at the beginning that we weren't going to get through all of it. It's a broad topic, right? And barriers for role modeling is coming up an awful lot. And as you said, maybe there's something there around unpicking previous cultures and cultural experiences, male, female, and all walks of life. Actually, I think it's more about your experience. My role models growing up actually typically was my mum, my sister, my auntie, my nan. Really great women and amazing role models who became business people, who became amazing family members, who became amazing traveling and entrepreneurs in their own way. And I think it's really important that role modeling, therefore, is just you're more conscious of it. You're more conscious of your role models, who shaped you, what behaviors you admire. And as you said, rightfully, I feel, because I feel quite passionately about this, and I get really energized by the learning process and being curious and staying curious. You've got to go out there and have conversations with people about what shaped them. And I feel like that's the starting kind of, if I was to be looking at this from a company point of view, the first point of call I would be happening is getting people in groups, getting people together and talking about their role models. Who was it? Who was it that shaped them? If you're a new team at the moment, and we know that there is a lot of new teams coming together, a lot of people have moved roles. The Great Resignation has meant that there's a great opportunity actually for teams coming together to start off on the right foot, to have more honest, more open, more authentic conversations about who they are, what experience in their life has shaped them as human beings, not just as, not just in the work world. Who really shaped us? What does that mean? What values do you want to kind of promote and role model yourself? Because there's always this kind of intention and action and kind of a gap in between them. I intend to go to the gym 4 times a week. I end up going twice, maybe. There's always those intention and action gaps for people. But I think if we all rally around each other as team members and help each other to role model those things that we want to role model, we become happier. We do create a kind of trusted culture, but more importantly than that, we become the human beings that we thrive to be and want to be. And we create a culture where people are supporting us to be the best version of ourselves. And we talk about that with clients. But we truly do that through a team connection rather than just a leadership dynamic that can often be, I guess putting a lot of strain on leadership, actually.
Yeah.
And we talk a lot about cognitive overload for leadership at the moment. There's a lot going on, and actually, how can us as a team be doing some of these things? But there's a lot, as you said there. And one of the things I wanted to come to just before we close off, and we've only got 5 minutes left, well-being. We haven't touched on well-being, and I feel like it's a really, and I feel like you touched on it a little bit there about having those open conversations and opening up a little bit. Don't know about you, my friends, and I've grown up in sports teams. I've grown up in kind of the kind of traditional dressing room kind of behavior where conversations don't happen. We're hearing it a lot from clients, particularly kind of engineering, telecoms, those kind of traditionally STEM, which are doing amazing things to encourage kind of better conversations around well-being. But if you're kind of working with a client at the moment and they're talking about well-being strategy, how does this fit in? What's happening there?
I think, again, it's a sense of, when it comes to businesses that we as a team are talking to, so many companies have been through, again, a huge experience, a huge shift in the way that they work day to day. So many the positive side of it is that many companies, lots of different very senior people within these companies that we're talking to at the moment, are very aware, fully aware that the people that they need to look after, their employees, have been through something very stressful, very deep, very meaningful, but everyone has been affected in their own personal way. And so when it comes to the well-being of their people, they, as senior leaders, have to be acutely aware that the way that they worked previously may have changed forever. But even if it hasn't, there needs to be flexibility with both how they work, but also each individual's general well-being and how they bring, we talk a lot about, quote, bringing your best self to work. And I guess what we mean by that is ensuring that our general well-being outside of the office is as good as it possibly can be, so that when we're in the office, when we're working from home in this hybrid working world, that those outside influences, aren't a detriment to what we're trying to do day to day and contribute and be our best selves in the working world. I think well-being overall for everyone has again, one of the positives from the last couple of years and the experience of it all is that well-being has been brought to the forefront of everyone's minds. Again, historically, pre-pandemic, I think when someone said to any of us, what does well-being mean to you? It was only ever physical. Now we are just more aware of the mental, the emotional load and the toil that we've all kind of had to go through. And so how we balance our physical health with our mental health as well, and how the two come together to shape our overall well-being. And yeah, from my point of view, from the conversations I'm personally having day to day, the great thing is that there are so many more companies, whether they're dealing with, a dozen people or many thousand, they're aware of how important and key this is. They know that they have to invest. And when I say invest, I don't just mean budget. I don't just mean money. I also mean time and energy and their focus and attention on their people, because that's what employees are looking for now. They're not looking for just you know, a day off on their birthday or an extended lunch break where they you know, go for a nice lunch, or a pool table in their office. They're looking for investment in them as people and an understanding of who they are, what they are, I guess, dealing with outside of the office, and how that affects what they do day to day as well. So yeah, I think from my point of view, general well-being for men and women, it's a huge thing, which I think we as an industry have to promote and take on and really use to our advantage from here on, because it's changing for the better.
Yeah, I think so, and I like to think that I wake up every day and make a tiny amount of difference by having conversations like this with people like you, that will make a difference to someone out there today. And thank you for kind of listening and continuing to follow us on the Friday Lives. It is 9 o'clock, and it's gone really quick. And I've put this question back up: the barriers for role modeling, because maybe that's a question to leave us with. You know, what's stopping us having these conversations about role modeling and about our experience and about kind of how we can understand other people around us and build those more deeper, more trusted connections and relationships with people. And how we do that through understanding the role models that have shaped them, but also how that then links, as you've just said, to well-being, and actually how can we enhance mental, physical, social, financial well-being actually through these more trusted relationships and these conversations that will come about as a result. We're going to have to leave you because it's 9:02 now, and we've been talking for ages. But thank you for joining. It's been great to have you on.
Cheers, Anne. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.